Hey guys, Kerry Werner here from the Kona Maxxis Shimano team to fill you in on day 2 of GoCross. I already talked about day 1, so let's just jump right into it and pick up with Sunday. After missing out on the sprint and the win on Saturday, I was pretty motivated, and with that sprint and lack of gearing that I mentioned fresh in my head, I decided to throw 44 on. Also tightened up my pedals. One of the perks of SPDs is that you can tighten them. Again, start was pretty crucial, being a downhill, and today we had a different hole shot leader, and it was Ghost Vandermeer. He had a strong start and took up the pacemaking on lap 1. Nothing notable on lap 1, no crashes or anything. I had a good start, slotted in about 5th or 6th wheel, and everything was pretty breezy. The one thing I didn't mention yesterday was that on the first lap for the sand pit, they do take a 5-foot tiller through that thing for the start of the elite races. It's super fluffy and pretty tricky to ride. On day 2 here, I know Ghost and Curtis were running, but being downhill, it was even a bit easier to ride, so a lot of us kind of just slogged our way through it. Come second lap though, it was a non-issue. So Ghost set up the pacemaking on lap 1 and came into lap 2 doing the same. It seemed like he was on a bit of a mission, but then somewhere through lap 2, I think there was a bobble on the backside of the course, and that allowed Curtis, who was sitting second wheel, to jump in front. Curtis wasted no time in putting a little pressure on. I don't know if the start got to Ghost or he just wasn't feeling like he wanted to close the gap. Curtis got off the front and took 8 seconds pretty easy before I started to get really anxious, and I jumped around and started that bridge effort on the back side of the course on lap 2. I'm not gonna lie, that put the wood to me. I was hurting, felt hotter. There was already a race in my legs, and it took me a solid 2.5 laps to close that gap down. Curtis was obviously trying to keep the gap alive, and by the time I caught him, we had only about 10 to 15 second gap to the chase group, who was Lance and Steven and Scott Funkston. So they were always visible as we were making these turns. As I said, the GoCross course is really punchy and has a ton of turns. You can always kind of look back and get a gauge for either how much time you're putting into somebody or how much time the chase is putting into you. So Curtis and I linked up together. I think I pulled for a lap and a half or 2 laps in the middle of the race. Like I said, that effort to bridge to him took a bit out of me, and I wasn't into just keeping the hammer down, so I rode a steady tempo. But that did allow Lance and Steven and Scott to kind of close that gap down ever so slightly. Finally, I think Lance ended up bridging up and connecting with either 3 or 2 laps to go. Again though, behind him was Steven and Scott, and the gaps were not very big. Contrary to yesterday, where we came in and had 30 to 40 plus second gap, everything was within 20 seconds here between chase groups. You had to stay on your toes and stay sharp. Any little mix-up could just give the guy behind you a carrot to chase. Came into 2 laps to go, and it was Lance, Curtis, and I doing that effort early. I was starting to fade. I think Curtis knew that. We came into a feature that he was riding really hard, and I think he saw that I struggled with. It was downhill, 3 logs into a corner, and then these uphill logs were just gutting me. That 44 I put on, I ended up getting stuck in a harder gear than I wanted to be, so I think by the end of the race that also took a little bit out of me, just like crawling out of corners from a lower cadence than I was used to. Regardless, Curtis put in a little dig up over those log steps and gapped me, and then just kept the pressure on. I couldn't match it, and all I was trying to do at that point was keep Lance off my tail. I did what I could for a lap and a half of just mitigating that time lost to Curtis, while also keeping Lance behind me in check. With the efforts that I put in earlier, I was given all I had, so if Lance was starting to close it down, I don't know that there was much more I could have done about it. That last lap and a half was a pretty smooth run. We finished as it was. Curtis, I was about 15 seconds back, and then Lance was about 15 seconds back from me. So a bit less exciting than Saturday. Bummed on 2 second place finishes in my hometown race, but that's the way she goes. We've got 5 more weekends of racing in a row here to try to figure it out. So next up is Rochester. It's the first C1 and the first race of the USCX series. GCN will be streaming the C1 races live here over the next 5 weekends, so we have like a lot of cool cyclocross content coming at you. We've got the live coverage at Rochester, live coverage of the C1 at Baltimore. Then we head to Trek, and you got live coverage of the World Cup. Then you got live coverage of the Fayetteville World Cup. Then you got GoCross, live coverage Friday at GoCross of the C1, live coverage Saturday of the C2, and Sunday of the World Cup. And then the last race of this traveling circus will be Cincy with a C1, and the C1 will also be live streamed. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and yeah, we'll check in with you guys after Rochester. Thanks for watching.